Episode number 114. Welcome to the Heads Up Poker Podcast. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for getting the word out. Each and every week, our downloads are growing, and it's because of you for sharing, getting the word out there with other poker players, and letting people know about the show. We are on YouTube now. We've got a YouTube channel. We've got all our episodes up there. Andrew's been putting in some work, and we've got them all in order from 1 through now 114. So you can listen to us there. Stitcher, iTunes, Podbay, all the outlets. If you know of a hosting site that we are not on, shoot me an email at headsuppoker.poker to let me know, and we'll get up on there. So, let's see, what's new within the last week? Oh, I got an email from Aljaz Tariknik, and thank you, Aljaz. It says, hello, first of all, thank you for doing an amazing podcast. I really enjoy the interviews as well as the strategy content. Regarding later, an interesting spot occurred when I was playing a cash game a few days ago. I read through your email, Aljaz, and I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to save this one. I'm going to tease it for next week, because next week we have Alex Venosa coming back from before. He's been Mike's backer and coach in live cash, and I think this hand would go perfectly with that episode. So we're going to tease this. We're going to save it for next week. It's a really cool spot, and we're going to pick Alex's brain on it. So thank you for the email, Aljaz, and we will talk about it. We'll talk about it next week. So stay tuned. That'll be in episode 115. I've been grinding a lot online, playing quite a few tournaments. My wife was out in Barcelona and on a trip with her mom, and so that gave me, Dad, a lot of time to play cards. So it's a lot of fun. I had a couple of deep runs. Didn't probably put in about 35 hours while she was gone, and never. I think I'm down about $200 in those 35 hours. So just short. You know, I got like a 4th place. I think I got a 9th, and then 2 days ago I got a 19th out of 500 or something. So couldn't score one of those top 3 to really make it positive for the week. But that's all right. I played well. Had some interesting spots come up. I had one in particular here. I guess we could go into the first hand. It was I got 2 hands here, and they're both from Ignition. And so we got anonymous players. We've been playing at this table for about 40 hands. So not a huge sample on the players, but does give us a little bit of an idea of how the 2 villains in the hand are going to play. We are in the small blind with 10-6 of clubs. Okay? So there's an under the gun limp. He's got 35 big blinds. And then it folds around to us in the small blind. We got 10-6 of clubs. Now, what to do here? Do we call or do we fold? I don't think this is a good hand to raise, especially with an under the gun limp. So I think this is a call. You could argue for a fold here. I would prefer to call just because it's very likely that the big blind is going to check behind, and we get to see a flop with 2 suited hands. Now, if this was 10-6 offsuit, I'd be folding this. If this was 10-7 off, you might even consider a fold. 10-8 off, I think, is a call. 10-5 suited, I think, is a fold here. And the reasoning is like what Carlos was talking about a couple of weeks ago. 6, and then the board can flop 7, 8, 9, and then you have a 10, so you could get a straight that way. I think that's just the one thing that's kind of leaning towards a call here. So I suppose you could argue a fold or a call either way. I think either one's probably fine, but I went for the call. So I call. I've got 90 big blinds. The big blind has 48, and the under the gun limper has 35. Okay, so me and the big blind are fairly deep. I think that argues a little bit more for a call as well. And the big blind checks behind, and we go to a flop. Oh, by the way, the blind levels are 150, 300. And so the pot now is 1140. Okay? Now, with 10-6 of clubs, the flop is 8 of clubs, 7 of hearts, 4 of clubs. Okay, so with the 10-6 of clubs, think about that. 8 of clubs, 7 of hearts, 4 of clubs. So we obviously have a flush draw, right? We got 4 clubs out there. But we also have a straight draw, and this is what's called a double-gutted straight draw. So we've got, we could catch a 5, and that would give us 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the straight. And we could also catch 9. So we could get 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we have a 10 in our hand. So double-gutted, do we check or do we lead here? Either one I think is okay. If you go for a check, you could argue for a check raise to kind of build a pot. We're a fairly big favorite here against a variety of hands. If he's got an 8, we're a favorite against that. If he's got a worse flush draw, if he's got even like a pair here, we're ahead of a pair. So to check or to bet, to check raise or to bet, I think I decided to lead out here. I let out for half pot. Now villain raises here to 1140. The under the gun limper folds, and now it's back on us. In the moment when I saw this hand, I thought that I was probably a bigger favorite than I actually was. I end up going with the hand. I end up making it 35. He shoves for 13K, and then we call it off. He ends up showing ace-8 suited, which we're thrilled about because against ace-8 suited there, we're about, I ran it through Equilab. I was pretty sure we're over 60%, and that was right. We're at 62, and he's at 38. So for this exact scenario, it worked out perfect. However, I ended up, pulling this up on the replayer and running it through the range of hands that he could have for this. And once I started plugging in all the hands that he could have here, we weren't quite as big of a favorite as I originally thought. So this is why I thought this hand made for an interesting spot. Because the hands I gave him here, now remember the board is 8, 7, 4. Okay, so I gave him pocket 4s. He could have pocket 4s there. He could have, when he's going with this hand, when we bet, he raises and then we re-raise and he shoves. This is his range, I think. Pocket 4s, pocket 7s, pocket 9s possibly. I took out the hands, the top of his range. I took out 10s, jacks, queens, kings, and aces, ace-king suited, ace-queen suited, ace-king off, ace-queen off, like that. Because I think that the big blind in his position, when you have an under-the-gun limp, if it folds around to the small blind completes, and he's sitting there with 10s or better, or ace-king suited, ace-queen suited, things like that, I think he's going to raise there pre-flop almost all the time. There's probably, a few percent of the time that a player is just going to check behind with hands like that. But I think the vast majority of the time when a player is nutted there, they're going to put in some money. So I took those out of his range. So we got 4s, 7s, 8s, pocket 9s for an overpair. And then also here we got all 2-pair combinations. Because remember, he was in the big blind, and the action is on him, and he can either check and see a flop or he can raise. So 7-4 suited is definitely in his range. 8-4 suited is definitely in his range. 7-4 off, 8-4 off. All these are 2 pairs. 7-8. What are some other ones in his range? Ace-8 off, Ace-8 suited for top pair. And then some other ones that I didn't really calculate into his range. And they don't influence it a whole heck of a lot because there's some that cancel out that we're actually ahead of, like 9-5 suited. But there's a lot of other little, one combination of hands that are flush draws that are actually beating us right now because we don't have a pair. We do have the straight draw, but, like ace-jack of clubs, ace-10 of clubs, ace-9 of clubs, all the way down to ace ace 2 suited and up. Now he can't have ace 6 of clubs because we have the 6 of clubs, and he can't have ace 10 of clubs because we have the 10 of clubs. But those hands, and then other ones too. Remember, he checked behind here, so he could have king 9 of clubs, he could have queen 9 of clubs, he could have jack 9 of clubs, jack 5 of clubs. I don't know if a player's really going to go all in here with jack 5 of clubs. He could. He's got a gut shot, and he's got the flush draw, and he's got an over. Who knows? If he went with ace 8 for top pair on here, and he got in 50 big blinds with that, I wouldn't put it past him. So I plugged in these other ones into his range, and then I pushed play, and we're only 47% here, and he's 53. So that was an interesting spot, I thought. In game, I was patting myself on the back, and the way the board ran out, it ran out well. We ended up catching a 5, I believe. Yeah, we caught a 5 of clubs, so we got both the straight and the flush, and we took it down. But then afterwards, I went back and I ran this through an equity calculator, and I mean, we're basically flipping 50 big blinds here. We're splitting the limp from the under the gun limper and the antes, which is only like 600 chips. So it's like 2 big blinds. And we're basically flipping half our stack here for, against that range. I just don't know that I really like this play. I think there might be other ways to play it. Maybe you can just check here and call and then see what develops on the turn. I don't know that we need to get our whole stack in here. Against his specific hand, it worked out great. But against his range of hands, I'm not so sure I'm sold on this one. I think I could have played it. I think I could have played it a little bit more passively. Got another hand here. This is ace-jack off in the small blind. But just before we get to that, I want to talk to you about getting in the right mindset before you even play a hand. I'm talking about Elliot Roe. Yes, listen to one of his MP3s before you play of the type of game that you're about to play. So if you're like me and you're playing online tournaments, then plug in his online MTT MP3. Listen to it before you play. It'll get you in the right mindset before you play. If you have anything going on in your head other than poker when you're playing, you're costing yourself money. And the fastest way to get in the right mindset is to listen to an MP3, a hypnosis tape about poker before you play. I mean, I honestly can't think of a better warm-up routine. There really isn't one. This is the future. This is what all the pros are doing, and you should be doing it too. I do it. Mike does it. Jonathan Little. He's the next up-and-coming thing. This is it. Elliot Roe. Get one of his MP3s. Click on the link in the show notes. You can get a free one, a 7-minute Tilt-Buster. You try it out for free before you buy anything. And when you do decide to purchase one, use the code HUPOKER. You'll score yourself a discount. You kick back some to the podcast, and it's a win-win. Okay, so we are in the small blind with ace-jack off. Okay, the action is, small blind is 300, big blind is 600. And we get under the gun folds, under the gun plus 1 folds, and then we get a raise to 3x, 1800, by a player that we have 120 hands on. Now, Ignition, 120 hands is a decent size sample because they're all autonomous, they're all anonymous players. So we don't know who this player is from one tournament to the next. It resets every time. They're just a number. But for this tournament, this player, we have 120 hands on, and his VPIP is 18, PFR is 13. So he's raising 13% of the time when he comes into a hand. Now, we can kind of make some assumptions here that, generally speaking, most players are going to be tighter in early position and looser in late position. That's not always the case. And when you play on a site like ACR or PokerStars and you have 1,000 hands on a guy, you can see when players are unbalanced like that. But here in Ignition, I think we have to generally make that assumption. So if he's got a PFR of 13, I think we can adjust that up to about 15 or 16 from middle position when we plug it into our equity calculators. Okay, so he raises to 3x. Then we get 1 fold, And in the cutoff, he calls the 3X. So the original opener has 77 big blinds, and the caller here in the cutoff has 50. We also have 120 hands on him, and he's a 20 and then a 9 PFR. Okay, so he's a little bit tighter. Here with his range, I think we can assign him something like 14% was what I gave him. I gave the original opener 16%, which is 3s plus, ace-2 suited plus, ace-10 off plus. I took out some of the middling ones, and then king-10 suited plus, king-jack offs plus, queen-10 suited plus, and jack-10 suited. Then with the cutoff call, we gave him basically the same range and took out some of the middling aces and threw in some suited connectors. Okay. Then we get a call on the button. Now this is an interesting one because this call is, we've got 15 hands on him, so his stats are kind of irrelevant, but he only has 10 big blinds and he calls 3 of them. Now, while I was playing this hand, Aaron from TPE, you guys might know him as Lapper, he mentioned something here. He's, when the button calls and he's only got 10 big blinds and he calls 3 of them, I would argue here that this is either a good player with aces, and even that you could probably argue that, you should be shoving any 2 cards there, even aces. Possibly just calling with aces, getting greedy and recognizing that you're going to lose the pot more often, but you have a higher stake in the pot when the small blind and the big blind come along by you just calling. When you shove here, you're kind of forcing out the small blind and the big blind, and you're getting less action with your aces. So you could argue that it's a good player with aces and he's nutted there, but I think Aaron was probably right in that this is just a fish, and this is what fun players do. I shouldn't call him a fish. A fun player is they don't recognize that they have 10 big blinds and they should be shoving or folding. They just see that they've got jack-10 suited and it's their favorite hand, and so they call. So I think the button's range here, even though he only has 10 big blinds and he's tossing in 3 of them, I think his range is still fairly wide. That's a fun player move right there. So I gave him also a range of about 15, 16%, something like that. So that's the action. It under the gun +1 folds, +2 folds, and then the middle position raises to 3x 1800. Then we get a call from the cutoff with 50 bigs, and we get a call from the button with 10 bigs, and now we're in the small blind with ace-jack offsuit, and we have 23 big blinds. So when this was coming around to me, I thought, this is an awesome squeeze spot. We have 2 blockers, 2 great blockers. We got an ace and a jack. It's off-suited, so we don't mind. We'd rather shove this than call with it, because if H-Jack suited, I think it might argue a little bit more for a call, just because we've got more equity post-flop. Although with 23 bigs, I think it's still just a shove there. Maybe if we've got like 35, then we could argue more for a call instead of a 3-bet. But I think this could be a good isolation, shove, squeeze spot. And now, in game, I started thinking about it, and I wasn't too sure, because we were getting close to the money. We're at the top, if I remember correctly, I believe the top 36 paid, and we were in the low 40s. We were around 43, 44, something like that. So I was kind of on the fence, and I thought, usually when it's a borderline decision, and I'm pretty sure it's really close, I err on the side of caution and I go for the fold. Now in a cash game, that would not be the case, because you can just buy back in and reload. In a tournament, it's different. Once you're out, you're out. So I thought that the cutoff's calling range was pretty tight. I figured in game, I remember thinking, like, what's he calling with there? Looking back at it now, he's got 50 big blinds. The original opener has 77. He could be calling there with some suited connectors, small pairs, stuff like that he's not going to call a shove with. Although, the part that I remember in game thinking that both of these guys that called here got to be worried about the button shoving and myself, because the button's got 10, we've got 23 bigs. That in game, it made me tighten up the ranges a little bit. Anyhow, after this hand happened, what Aaron did was very nice of him. He posted this on Tournament Poker Edge. So we posted the hand, or Aaron did. He posted the hand up on Tournament Poker Edge. And, he posted the details with the blind levels and all that. And you guys can do the same if you join TPE. And put it in the forum. And in the meantime, I ran this on ICMizer. And so I put it in with the ranges I described. And pushed play, calculate. And it actually said that Ace-Jack was a fold here. It said that, it wasn't a call. It said that it's just, I don't really want to call it just barely a fold, because it's saying that we're losing a blind and a half here. Once I played with the ranges and widened them up a little bit, the tighter you put them, it could be losing as many as 5 big blinds, but I think these ranges are pretty accurate. I've been dissecting this for the last half hour, 45 minutes, and I think we're pretty close here. And it's saying that 7s plus is a call, King-Queen suited, I'm sorry, 7s plus is a shove, King-Queen suited is a shove, Ace-Jack suited plus is a shove, and Ace-Queen off is a shove. But Ace-Jack off is right on the edge there, and it's saying that you're losing about a blind and a half. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And even with 7s here, shoving 7s, it's saying that we're only making about 2/3 of a blind. 8s, it jumps up to about 2.5 big blinds, and it just goes up from there. But Ace-Jack suited, we're only making about 1/6 of a big blind, so you could even argue for a fold on that one. But I don't know. As far as the TPE forum, we did get one pro that responded, and this is what he said. This is Turbulence. His name's Sean Garswood. He's a rock star online. He says the main 2 ranges that you need to consider here are the middle position and cutoff. Button is clearly a clueless fish, and you're way ahead of his range. And he put in parentheses, there is no hand he should be flat calling instead of shoving with his stack in that spot. I agree, except for possibly aces. I think that aces, you could argue for a call there, because then you let the small blind and the big blind in cheaper. One of them's probably going to come in. If the small blind comes in, then the big blind's even more likely. And then you just shove on any flop and you get it in. So, yeah, I think he's right, though. That's a fun player move, and it should be recognized as such. The middle position opener can be fairly wide here, as he is the effective big stack. But he has 3x opened. What was his standard? His standard was 3x. Okay. I think you will be flipping with most of the cutoffs range. Also, if you shove squeeze and the middle position opener calls, it is most likely that the cutoff folds and the button is close to irrelevant, because he's only got 7 big blinds behind. Given the amount of chips already in the middle, squeeze shoving looks like a decent option, as you will have about 30% against the opener's calling range and at least 50% against the cutoffs range. Flatting and trying to play this hand out of position is pretty ugly. I agree. I think this is either a shove or fold. The maths in this spot is important, but I think you are getting too caught up in the math in these situations. So I will simplify this one for you. 1. Do I have a decent hand with decent equity? Yes, and then in parentheses he put it as blocker value as well. Number 2. Are there a decent amount of chips in the middle? Yes. Nearly 50% of your stack. Okay. Number 3, do I have fold equity? Yes. Number 4, is this a gamble spot I should consider taking to build my stack? And he put, absolutely. So maybe this is a shove. I knew it was close in game, and I erred on the side of caution, and maybe that was a little bit too cautious. I'm not sure. But it's definitely close. Running it through ICMizer here and plugging all the values and playing with the ranges. I mean, Ace-Jack off is just, it's hovering right on the edge of a fold here. And the more you play around with the ranges, you could argue that it's an edged call. I don't know. The average Ignition player is most of them are fun players. This probably was a shove and a miss spot. But either way, that is what it is. You guys can join Tournament Poker Edge by clicking on the link in the show notes. You can go to tournamentpokeredge.com and you can get yourself a discount. You can use the codes depending on how long you sign up for. If you want to go for a month, or if you want to go for a quarter, or if you want to do like I do and go for the whole year, use the code HUP month, HUP quarter, or HUP year, and you'll get yourself a discount. It is an awesome community. I cannot imagine my poker life without it. I really can't. I've been a member now for years, and yeah, they're like my whole poker network and friends, or everyone is on here. It's an awesome, awesome site. Let's see, a little update on the, I got a bunch of messages on Facebook and Twitter and in the email about what's going on with the hotel in Barcelona. So an update on the Onix Rambla hotel in Barcelona. This one has just been bothering me. When you go to a hotel and you check in and they give you the key card, you're supposed to feel safe and secure at a hotel. You're supposed to be able to leave your belongings, go, and not have to worry. And with this hotel, that is definitely not the case. And this has been bugging me because I don't want anyone else to go to that hotel and have the same thing happen to them. I think Mike is right. If we can spread the word, and when people Google this hotel and they see that the staff is blatantly robbing its guests, then they can save themselves the hassle of getting robbed and just pick another hotel, because the police station's right across the street and they didn't do anything. And it would mean a lot to me if you could write a review of this hotel. It's Hotel Onix Rambla. There are links in the show notes to a few travel sites for reviews, and just anywhere you can think of. I mean, Expedia, Orbitz, a travel blog. Use your imagination. I mean, if the first thing that people see when they Google Onix Rambla Hotel is staff stole from our room, then we've made a difference, and we can save lots of people from putting a dime in that place and just getting their stuff robbed. After doing the investigation myself and with my wife there, we know who did it, and the staff is obviously involved because their story changed several times. And if you weren't listening last week, basically my wife and her mother-in-law were in the room. They left to go have dinner, and they left their wallets and their money in their bags in a locked bag. When they came back, only the money was gone. And it wasn't even like they tried to skim off the top, if there was $600 there, it's not like they took 50 and hoped you didn't notice. And there was, my mother-in-law counted it just before they left. They had $582. They even took the $2 in the other side of the wallet. They took the $5.80 in 20s, and then they grabbed the $2. And it's just like obvious. And the girl at the front desk, she changed the entries on the key card to show that the staff didn't enter when they actually did, and it was that place is just a total sham. I really don't want to see anyone else get scammed there. And the manager of the hotel knows that this girl is stealing, and he basically told us to go pound sand. He's like, well, the police can't do anything, so neither can we. It's like, they work for you. What do you mean you can't do anything? Anyways. It would mean a lot to me if you guys could write a review. There's a couple of links in the show notes that just plug away, have fun. So thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm thanking you in advance. And that's about it for this week. Next week we've got Mike and Alex, and we're going to talk some cash and find out what's going on new with Alex and the always entertaining Mike Snyderman. So thank you for tuning in, and here is your weekly motivational speech.
Why is it so hard to do the little things that would improve my life? The way that our minds are designed is our minds are designed to stop you at all costs from doing anything that might hurt you. There are so many people in the world, and you know, you may be watching this right now, and you have these incredible ideas, and what you think is missing is motivation. And that's not true. Because the way that our minds are wired, and the fact about human beings, is that we are not designed to do things that are uncomfortable or scary or difficult. Our brains are designed to protect us from those things, because our brains are trying to keep us alive. And in order to change, in order to build a business, in order to be the best parent, the best spouse, to do all those things that you know you want to do with your life, with your work, with your dreams, you're going to have to do things that are difficult, uncertain, or scary, which sets up this problem for all of us. You can always make a decision. That's always in your control. Staying with somebody that treats you like garbage is a decision. It is. Staying at a job that you hate is a decision. Staying in the body that you are not proud of is a decision. Is it going to be easy? No, it's not going to be easy to change. It's simple. It's your job